Not seem like that. What I'm about to say is for the set of guys in this room right now that feel no matter where you go, you do not fit in. You feel you do not have a voice, and you absolutely feel voiceless at times. You feel when you're in a room, you are truly alone. The room can be packed like it is right now from wall to wall, but you feel not a single soul notices you or has time for you. You start conversations with other individuals, and it always seems a little bit off. They're not quite interested in what you have to say, or it feels like they would rather be anywhere else except for talking to you. This is for the gents in here that no matter what you think you do not belong, and you'd rather be isolated, alone, ignore, or even not attempt to connect with others because you feel you are wasting your time. That nobody likes you, or that you just simply they simply do not understand you because they do not know you or have not taken time to get to know you. And some of you are thinking, why am I here? I don't feel comfortable, this isn't my crowd, or even that you don't have a relationship with Jesus. You think these guys don't like me, they don't know me, they don't want to know me, and they don't want me here, and I'm not physically fit enough to be here, and I'm not meant to be here. But listen, you belong here, you are wanted here, and more importantly, we all need you here. Jesus loves you, because I can't speak for these other guys, these other leaders, but I know they do too. We love you, we value you, and in the end, we want to party with you in eternal glory. These words you just heard describe me in every way, shape, and form. I know I've limited time up here, that I've already exceeded the time limit by the time we'll be all said and done. I want to share my past and what has made me and what has shaped me to help the new guys know they can come to me because I understand. And maybe the older, better guys may understand me just a little bit better. This is my story of living around drug abuse, isolation, mental health, fear, and most importantly, how Jesus and God had favor in my life this whole time, even though I chose not to see it. Because I was focused on the hard times, the negative, and simply surviving. If you asked me 20 years ago if this is where I was going to be tonight, I would have said, heck no. But God puts us where we need to be, when we need to be, for a rhyme, a reason, and a circumstance. The heart of a man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps. Proverbs 16:9. Exodus 15:3 states, "My Lord is a man of war," and I quote this because as a man, as a protector of our families, friends, or relationships with God, life is war, and we must endure those times so we can hear the calm in his voice. And the Lord will know, calm in the voice of the Lord, and know once again he has a plan and a purpose for all of you. Many of you have heard my brother's side of the story, the drugs, the addiction, the struggles, everything that went into making his story. This is my side of that. And even though choosing a different life path does not necessarily mean I'm better or make our lives any easier. And this is what makes us the modern day Sons of Thunder. My life starts, my mom and dad was married when I was about 11 years old roughly. We went to church like many others. And that did sow that faint love and trust for God in the back of my head, but I mainly went to church to eat the bread, drink the juice, play the games, and have fun in children's church. I never truly learned what the love of God or Jesus meant, and it wasn't practiced at home very well. I don't remember a lot from my past as a kid besides I found isolation and peace in video games, which carries over later into my adult life and teen years. This is where I found early on that I would spend most of my time alone in my room or doing my own thing, just simply beating to my own drum. I don't remember a lot of my childhood, at least the good parts of it. Unfortunately, I remember quite a bit of the bad. As my parents got a divorce, I remember my dad's dropping us off on my mom's front doorsteps, and he said to me and my brother, "This may be the last time I see you boys," implying he was about to go home and commit suicide. I remember around that same time period, my dad's roommate was a meth head, and I was constantly getting headaches and feeling sick when I would stay there for the weekend. The first time I ever got drunk was in the 4th grade on New Year's Eve at my dad's house. The 4th grade, man. Can you guys imagine if that was your kid? And on the other hand, I'd like to say it was just my dad going crazy and living sinfully during this time period, but that's not true either. My mom was constantly partying with us around, exposing us to a life we should not have seen, and this was just the start of choices and decisions that would affect us all down the road. Most importantly, I want to say I forgive her right now, and I forgive my dad, because ultimately, I know that God is the great architect, and Jesus was there as my shield the whole time. I want to say this for those people in the room that do know my family, please do not judge them or look down on them. They were facing their own demons too, and we all have a chance to grow. Little by little, our Heavenly Father perfects us by pruning us, shaping us, molding us, healing us, and making us more like Him so we can do all He was created for. All He created us for. Hebrews 13:20 and 21. During all this time, we moved constantly through the years. One thing stayed constant was my love for video games, which later in life would become a curse and a blessing. My mama and papa, who you will hear about a little bit later, was a huge part of my life. At times, I thought of them as mom and dad. When we was young and struggled, they made sure we kept roofs over our head. They made sure we had new clothes for schools. They gave us vacations, and we got to experience things in life that other better off kids did. Those two will forever hold a spot in my heart, and I could not put on paper how much they made my life change and impacted me to be the man I am today, even when I didn't realize it. God put them in my life to be a guardian over me. Let's fast forward a little bit to the 5th grade. It was the first time I smoked weed. 6th grade was the first time I tried cigarettes, and boy, that was something. Not in a good way. My friends and I would run streets, selling cigarettes, creating Drano bombs, and putting them in people's mailboxes and windows of their car, which I now know is a federal felony. In 6th grade, I would have my first encounter with the law over off of Center Street here in Greenfield and Osage. There used to be a place called Barnaby's there. It's now apartments, but it had been shut down for a while at the point and was still there. Being used as storage, some of us neighborhood kids broke into the place. We spray painted, vandalized, and destroyed the place. We found the place where they were storing lots of things, and we stole lots of DVDs and other items he had stored there. A few short weeks later, they found out that my so-called neighbor friends ratted on me, and I was put on probation. That's where God's favor came in my life the first time, and I did not see it. I did hundreds to thousands of dollars in damage and theft, and I got some probation time. After this, I continued to run the street and cause issues. Sorry, guys.
You're good. Guys,
Love you, brother.
You got it.
7th grade, my mom got remarried. That didn't last long. That's a different subject for another day. My first half of the 7th grade year, we moved to Shelbyville. For my first semester, I missed a total of 29 days of school. Got suspended multiple times for fighting. Let's just say my time there did not last long. During this time, though, is when I would be exposed to a deeper and darker life that I should have never seen as a kid. And knowing now that God had put his armor and shield on me and did not let me go down that path, I'm so grateful. Psalms 18:2 states, "The Lord is my protector. He is my strong fortress. My God is my protection, and with him I am safe. He protects me like a shield, and he defends me and keeps me safe." Around this time was the start of the downfall of my family and what I known as my life for years to come. One time in 7th grade, in the house we rented, I spent most of the time in my room watching anime, playing PlayStation, playing my action figures, trying to hold on to that childhood. But the one time I would go down to my basement where my mom, brother, and a whole bunch of other people had a gigantic white pile of substance on a mirror. Still to this day, I do not know what it is. I do not know what it was, but when I know what it is, and this is where I noticed heavy drug use for the first time. Second half of 7th grade year, we moved back to Greenfield. On my first time, at this time, my dad met another woman. Had my half sister Autumn, who I was blessed. I'm so blessed with the relationship I have with her right now and that I do. So he was busy dealing with those issues. I still visited him regularly during this time, as my brother basically had cut him off at this point. We moved back to Greenfield. I'd like to say things got better, but I reunited with my old friends, became a punk again, and started getting in fights left and right, getting in probation for the second time at an early age due to fighting. This would also be a trend to later come in my later years. A trend later in the coming years. Around this time, though, me and my best friend would become best friends, named Andrew, who plays a major part in my life for all of this. During the years, we moved. 8th grade is where things really started to change. My relationship with my dad at this time was okay, but a little rocky. I've always had love for my dad, but we didn't always see eye to eye, and we butted heads. My 8th grade year is where my brother got in trouble and sent to prison for the first time. My mom got in trouble smuggling contraband into the jail for him, so she got in trouble as well, on top of being arrested for stealing food from a grocery store for trying to feed us because she was bad off in her pill addiction, but she was still trying to provide. I watched my mom get with my brother's friends and that were barely legal and other actions. I don't really want to go into detail now, but the reputation that hurt and put on me in school, the pain it caused with my siblings and my family members and these other guys, the hurt it put in my eyes of the image of and the way I see my mom for years would affect me. So they got sent away. I was on my own, living in this apartment for a couple of days, until one day I got sent to live with my dad. My life actually seemed semi-normal then. Don't get me wrong, I was still a super troublemaker, getting in fights, smoking, partying, But the thing about me through all these years, I may have tried a pill or two, but I never liked it, and I never tried hard drugs because God put that guard in front of me. So I lived with my dad. This is where I really first started getting my roots in competitive video games. Not to the extent I knew would eventually come to start, but I played your typical games like Call of Duty, Madden, but my breadwinner was a game called Rainbow Six Vegas 2. I was ranked 471st in the world out of 800,000 players. To me, to put that in perspective, that's the top 0.1% of players in the world. I spent all my time on that game, grinding, getting so good, but pushing aside all the loneliness and the lack of family and love that there was, hiding from emotions and neglecting the only thing and everything, essential or important outside of the game. During this time, those video games also helped me stay out of trouble, helped me keep my head on straight and narrow. During this time, I told my dad, hey Dad, I want to be a pro video game player. I have the skill and I have the drive. My dad looked at me, laughed, and said, that is an unrealistic goal and not a real thing. And my dream was shattered right there. I don't blame my dad for saying that because he's old school, and back then video games did not look at how they are now. So I forgive my dad for saying that, but that really stunk. So 8th grade year, I made straight F's in school, not even a single D. Literally straight F's, failed every class including gym. The only reason I got pushed to 9th grade was because my dad said he didn't want to deal with the trouble, or at least something along those lines. He no longer wanted me to attend Greenfield schools, and that decision would ultimately help me in the long run, and I just did not see it. So in between summer of 8th and 9th grade, my dad moved me to New Pal. We moved into an old farmhouse with my step-siblings and my stepmom, Brooke, Carissa, Donnie, and my half-sister Autumn. I didn't have a room for the longest time. We were in the middle of nowhere, so I didn't have internet. I could no longer compete in online video games, which was my shelter. I had no longer felt the love and closeness of my dad because he had a new family, and I felt unimportant and shoved to the back burner in my life. So as a result, I started acting out even more. Be still and know I am God, Psalms 46:10. So 9th grade, I moved to New Pal School. No friends, new setting. You would most likely think, oh, easy, he'll make you friends in no time. That was not the case for me. The lonely feeling got way worse. I tried to fit in with a couple different groups. I never could. I was that weirdo that nobody wanted. I even tried to blend in and be a chameleon. I would join in on the bullying. One day in the cafeteria, I yelled at this kid, hey, why don't you have any hair? Everybody laughed, and then I figured out shortly after that that person was a cancer survivor. Talk about feeling low, written low, like garbage. So after that, I told myself, never again. That's not who I am. And I went back to being that kid, the guy who didn't belong, and just didn't have a place. For the first 3 years, I would sit by myself at lunch every single day. Kids would make comments and poke me, and make jokes, and just poke the bear. Psalm 73:23 through, cut that off. Psalms 73:23, nevertheless, I am continually with you. The time period was really hard for me. I went from having many friends at school to zero. I went to school, I was miserable. While in class, I was constantly bullied and made fun of. I had no escapes. Then I would go home, and I had a miserable home life. I felt alone, I felt troubled, and I was seeking attention. I had a handful of people in my life that helped me, like my cousin Letitia. She was a big one. She let me come to her house on the weekends throughout the years, and I'd have a place to relax, vent, and play games, and just be myself for a while. The other place I'd go a lot would be, sorry, I lost my place. One thing about being alone during this time period, I was a resource for learning disability, reading comprehension, ADHD, and anger issues. I formed a strong relationship with my resource teachers. The ladies I'm about to name literally changed my life. They became like role models or parents' figures for guidance. This is fast forwarding a little ahead, and I would not have made it through high school, graduated with a life if it was not for these ladies I'm about to name. Mrs. Wagner, Mrs. Franklin, Mrs. Breckbuell, and Gwen Whitney, who the last one was not one of my teachers, but she played a major part in my life. She probably doesn't even know it. I owe them a big portion of the way I turned out, the way I did. God put them into my life to guide me and keep me safe, put me on the right path, which at that time I most likely took for granted. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. When you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. Isaiah 43:2. Psalms 91:11 and 12 say, God has commanded angels to guard you, and he is your refuge and strength. During these years, I struggled at school, I struggled at home, even getting in forced physical altercations with my dad. One time I hit him with a chair, fractured his forearm. One time he laid on top of me on the ground in our side yard, rubbing my face in the dirt. My mom came and got me from my dad's that night, and I would bounce back and forth in one of these situations, still doing the same things because I was lost on my journey. This added to my loneliness and my lack of self-image. I was not even good enough to get along with my own dad. I started smoking weed, started smoking more weed, trying to spice when that was a thing, and drinking occasionally with friends because I became so distant. During this time, my anger was at an all-time high. I was following the same trends as before, getting suspended, consistently and constantly facing expulsion. The pinnacle of my anger came in 10th or 11th grade. I was being harassed on a bus, and I blacked out and hit a 6th grade kid in the face. An innocent kid had nothing to do with what was going on because I could not control my emotions and my anger. They took control of me. What a horrible human being I was. Literally had no control of the situation. I remember standing up, remember sitting down, nothing in between. I got put on probation for this rightfully. Probably should have gotten away with punishment than that. It also made things worse at school as I was picked on and bullied even harder after this happened, which I understand deserved. I remember having a conversation with my dad. He said, "Son, you got to get a grip on this anger. What happens in the future if this is your wife or kid?" And boom, like a right hook to the gut, made me think. From there, I tried to control my emotions better because that was not the man I wanted to be. I would not fail my kids, and I would not fail my family. I haven't had an anger issue like that since, not that I still don't get it. During all this time period at home, my mom was still running around doing her thing after she was out of incarceration. My dad's house, I was constantly in trouble between the smoking, partying, getting in trouble at school, running my mouth, and just being defiant. One time, my dad threatened to call the cops on me, so I walked 7 miles through cornfields, forests, and just regular fields to make it to my cousin Letitia's house to avoid the cops. She always went to bat for me and did the same thing there. She understood, although I was a troublemaker, I was not a bad kid. I was just a guy lost and misunderstood. We may not be as close as we once were, but I will forever be grateful for her. During this time, the other place I went a lot was my mama and papa's. Over there, I had no worries, no threats, just love and shelter. The caring that I've been craving for and longing for my entire life. My cousin Perry lived there with me. He was there. He was like my brother when my brother was not around and not available. He filled that void for me. So for my junior year, I got kicked out of my dad's house again. I went back. I was either go to juvie or go move with my mama. Luckily, my papa came and got me at 8 o'clock at night, and from there, I would live with my mama and papa for a while. I would have my own room, and I would finally have that love I craved. Things went well for months. Lived there. My grades was good. My teachers seen improvements in my attitude. I was still me though, causing trouble, fighting, but this was a little bit different. Not that it was right, but it was a little different. I no longer started fighting for pride, but from a standpoint of standing my ground and standing up to the defense of bullies picking on others. I started fighting for these kids that could not stand up for themselves. Started fighting for these people that were too scared or intimidated to do it themselves. I almost became like a voice of the voiceless. This is where I started actually making friends, and slightly things at school started going socially better. Because I found people I could relate to. With all the fighting, I would still be in and out of trouble. I'd once again find myself in probation due to the fact that I got in a fight with a kid whose dad was a sheriff. And I would get suspended from school, come back, immediately get in another fight, get suspended, and that trend followed for a while. During all this, I was offered I was in a lot better shape back then than I am now. During all this, I was offered a starting spot on the new PAL football team. Starting right in. I was told by my athletic director and the coach and a couple others that one day when I got called down to the office that my aggression would be perfect for the team. It would give me an outlet, and my knowledge of football, I would succeed. They think they could help me grow, and all I had to do was show up, practice, and make an inch of effort. I went to practice for 2 weeks and decided this was pointless. I would never amount to this. I doubted myself. I went back to partying. So fast forward a little bit. At this point, I'm still living with my mama, but I'm going to my mom's house every couple weekends a month. Trying to rebuild that relationship, even though it was the same thing. I'd go there, we'd smoke spice together, and I'd neglect all social responsibilities. I think during this time, it was adding extra stress on my mama with her, even though she smoked, but I think it was adding extra stress. Just worrying about me because that's all she ever did, and then she had a heart attack. My papa had it down, but she recovered, he got better. And life went on. So a little bit while later, one time I come back from my mom's to my mama's, the first time, and this is the woman I credit for truly touching my soul first, my guardian angel. I get back from my mom's, I get blindsided. She says to me, "What'd you do with my jewelry?" She was a heavy smoker. So my cousin Perry and I was flabbergasted, straight blindsided. All the fights I've been in throughout my life are nothing compared to that sucker punch. I said, "Mama, I promise I did not take anything from you. What are you talking about?" She said, "You stole or took my jewelry and gave it to your mom." I swore to her up and down that I did. I've stolen the past, but the one person I would never steal from was that woman. That woman who breathed life in me, gave me another chance. The first time I felt in my life that I actually belonged, that someone actually loved me, that someone wanted me around. A couple days later, my mama told me I could no longer live there, and she could no longer do this, and I was removed or kicked out of the house. My papa had no choice to go with it, and just like that, I was back at my dad's for a while, because my mom didn't have a place for me. The thing about the situation was my mama seemed a little bit off, and me and Perry noticed it, and we tried to tell and warn people, but nobody wanted to listen. They just said I was a thief, and that was that. Well, it turns out that this was an early stage of dementia that would eventually take her life. And they believe it was accelerated from going under during the heart attack from that surgery. Broke my heart in every way. Sorry, guys. I lived with my dad. It was actually from the day my senior year started. Again, we got in a giant fight. I get kicked out. But this time I would go to live with my best friend Andrew that I mentioned earlier, and his mom Gwen, who I also mentioned earlier. I will forever credit Gwen with being the one person in my life that truly saved me. Without her, I would have been on my own on the street, fighting this hard fight that was already hard.
Thanks, Stormy.
Love you guys. I don't know if Gwen will ever hear this, but I love you, Gwen, and I thank you. She took me in her home, fed me, loved me. She took on another growing boy, a 6'1", 280-pound behemoth. I ate her food, I didn't pay rent, I didn't help with bills, and I added to the stress she was already feeling from all her other kids. But she loved me regardless, even if I did frustrate her at times, and drove her up the wall. Me and Andrew was a lot to handle together. I lived with them the majority of my senior year, even though I was still on my own. They helped me so much. My grades slipped again, and my attendance got worse, as now I was 18 living on my own. I'd call into school in the morning. "This is Stormy. I'm not coming into school today." "Stormy, you can't do that." "Well, that sucks for you guys." I'm not hanging up the phone. They would try to call my dad, and said eventually my dad got so tired of getting phone calls that he just straight up told him, "Stop calling me. He does not live for me. What do you want me to do?" So eventually, I lived there for over half a year. So eventually, although my mom still dealt with her addiction, she got a place. I was able to move in, and I had a room. Things was great for the most part. Then a major event in my life happened. I got arrested on 2013. It was actually 4/20/13 for possession of marijuana and driving under the influence. I spent 2 days in jail, 24 hours of it in the drunk tank for being high on weed, and that sucked. After that, I decided this is not my life. I got out of jail, went back to school that following Monday or whatever it was, and I tell you, the most disappointing feeling in the world was when I sat down in front of my teachers, Mrs. B, Franklin, and Koros, and they gave me that disappointed mom look. All the work they put into me, all the time they spent with me, all that was a result of what I gave them. After that, I decided to shape up and do better. Because the closest thing I had to a parent or a mom, and I disappointed them, wow, I did not like that feeling. So, come May, I graduated from high school with the help of my resource teachers. I shouldn't have graduated, to be honest with you. I got a job after high school working at Foot Locker. My friends lived with me at my mom's. Things were actually okay. I became really good friends with my friend Jay Rich, who still to this day is my best friend and my #1 teammate when it comes to competitive gaming. I hope one day he comes to love Jesus like I do now. During this time, we make lots of music, make a rap. It was like a therapy for me. I needed for my anger, depression, and I was pretty good lyrically at it. A couple people here has heard me rap. Big Josh is one of them. One thing about my life is I value my moral compass, and I've always been I wear my heart on my sleeve type of guy. So my mom's addiction got worse. My brother got out of prison, time went on, some other stuff happened that I don't remember the exact timetable for and the details. He moved in with us, and guess what? I got kicked out of my room. For him and his family. Now I'm back staying on the couch in a living room, no privacy. For a guy who loves self-isolation, that sucked. Something I struggle with, I felt like my brother was always the favorite, always the golden boy, and that's not his fault. This isn't jealousy or sour grapes, because I know that's a bad look, but that's how I felt. And I feel like this at times still, but that's my brother, and I would not trade him for the world. During this time, many fights and arguments happened. One I will always remember is I called my mom out on some sketchy behavior, which I probably shouldn't have done. But remember that part of my sleeve thing. That was on Christmas Eve. She threw stuff at me, cussed me out in front of family, my grandparents, and blamed me for ruining Christmas. This was a harsh one. Have your own mom tell you that. So one day, my mom had an episode, kicked us everybody out of the house. I was back on my own again, living in and out of several different places. Over the next 2 years, working several jobs, which sadly became a trend in my life. I worked with my brother, who had a job. I worked with my brother, had a job doing construction, was staying in and out of apartments in Carthage. Didn't work out for many reasons, so I moved back in with my mom who lived in Knightstown. I think she learned a lesson when you come in and back. By this time, I was smoking weed again, drinking, wasting any money I did have on remaining cigarettes. I decided I was done smoking weed. I decided I was done smoking cigarettes. And shortly after that, more would come with some changes in my life, just not enough yet, because yet did not know God's grace was there with me the whole time. 2 Corinthians 12:9, God's grace is enough for whatever we face, and the power is made perfect in our weakness. One thing throughout the years, I struggled with identity, self-worth, feeling important, and feeling like I did not matter to anyone. At times, I still feel useless. I still feel stupid. I feel like the awkward child that God breathed life into. So, after we get kicked out of my mom's, I moved back to my dad's for a little bit as I'm trying to get back on my feet, working, stacking logs. I get kicked out of there again, which this time was 100% my fault. I couldn't keep a job. I was constantly switching and quitting jobs, looking for that where I belong and that instant gratification. But where I was looking for that unconditional love, I never found. That's something I struggle with still to this day. But on a side note, a very important side note, we all have that unconditional love. It's from Jesus, and I was just choosing to ignore all the signs. Romans 8:38-39 says, "For I am convinced that neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither the present nor the future, nor any powers, neither height nor depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love that is Jesus Christ our Lord." And Romans 8:18 says, "The pain you feel now cannot contest to the glory that is to come." During this time, I accomplished 2 more things, though. It was my 21st birthday. I drank part of the beer and decided, this is stupid. I'm not doing this. I decided I'm not doing this. Part 2. A week after my 22nd birthday, we was at Wings, etc. And I said, "Dad, I'm going to quit drinking caffeine." My dad laughed at me and said, "All right, whatever you say." Here I am, 9 years later, straight edge, drug-free, living with God's love as the ultimate power. I missed work due to my... So, I get my own apartment. This is 2015 Junius. I'm working at what was called Kean at the time. Things was good till the same trends followed. I miss work due to my internet being hooked up. I lose my job, lose my apartment due to self-destructive tendencies like always. This time I have absolutely nowhere to go, and I'm about to be living in my car. Through God's grace, though, my Grammy and Grandpa let me move in with him until I could get back on my feet. I hated this, though, even though I was so grateful. My Grammy and Grandpa lived on a fixed income in a small one-bedroom house. They go to bed at 9 at night and eat dinner at 4:30 p.m. Here I am with my giant self adding to their bills and taking up space. So I lived there for a little while, working with my brother at a different job, which, as you guys are going to learn, is a trend as well. It was 2015-16. I was still going over to my friend Andrew's a lot. His mom still welcomed me there with love. I was just too prideful to ask to come back. At this time, I started getting really big in competitive gaming again, Call of Duty. I had all these problems, but I still never lost my passion for, or some call it addiction. But boy, I was good at that game. I'll come back to that here in a moment. So when I was on the phone with my buddy Andrew one day, pouring my heart out about how I was so miserable, I'll never forget, he spoke these words to me: just come home, brother. And I moved back in with Andrew that day. We started going Call of Duty. We was good. We were good. We were playing on semi-pro game battle ladders. Out of the top 350 teams, we were ranked top 50 in the world. We were just trying to get discovered in a saturated space that everybody else was as well. I was working, things was good. Around this time, late 2016, I started talking to Michaela, who's my now fiance, and I never knew this would change my life forever. Side note, this is an effective ADHD, by the way, and I'm writing this from the heart. Kayla and I dated back in 2014 for a month. We broke up because she said I was weird and I only wanted to kiss and never talk. But Kayla and I we got back together, we started spending a lot of time together we could. If I wasn't at work or on the game grinding, I was with her. We did everything we could, spent every possible moment. February 2017, me and Andrew get an apartment. Kayla moves in, still playing COD semi-pro and working on my YouTube channel, keeping a job for almost a year and a half at this point, loving life, loving Kayla. Then the trend hits, I lose my job, I quickly find another one, so we're still okay at this point. Fortnite comes out, I fall in love with this game just like the 3-year-old kids did. I stopped playing COD semi-pro and switched to Fortnite semi-pro competitive. Once again, I was good at this game, brushing shoulder with pro players and other top-tier players. Life was good. I had the woman of my dreams, and I was just trying to make a name for myself in the competitive scene. 2019, Kayla and I moved to Greenfield, the apartment we currently live in. I got a job with Comcast. Things was great. We adopted our dog Whiskey, who's still having a day, a short months before this. I was no longer alone. For the first time in my life, I had people who loved me, and everything seemed great on the surface. So February 2019, Apex Legends drops. I start playing that on the side as a passion for Fortnite was starting to die out for me. Once again, man, you guessed it, I was good. I was ranked top 150 in the world. 2020 hits, COVID, Call of Duty Warzone happened. Once again, by God's grace, I was good at the game. For those guys in here that know Warzone, my kill high on Big Map was 36 with trios. I played tourneys on the independent scene, did well, got my green card, my Dodge Charger that I drive up the parking lot. With all this said though, I still was not happy, was still bearing it, I don't even know what I said there. Where's this go? But as all this was going on, and life was too good, I was doing the same thing in the background. I was getting wrestled at Comcast. COVID made my job unenjoyable. I left Comcast and took a maintenance job at the Holiday Inn Express here in town for less pay, no benefits. This is late 2021. I wouldn't be here though today if I kept working there here at Fight Club, if I kept working at Comcast, because I worked every single Monday until 7 o'clock at night or later. Isaiah 55, 8-9 states, "Indeed, my plans are not like your plans, and my deeds are not like your deeds. For just as sky is higher than the earth, so my deeds are superior to your deeds, and my plans are superior to your plans." Things was okay for the most part, but on the back end, I got addicted to that feeling of spending money, not having it, but spending it. There's a quote by Andrew Tate that says, having things ain't fun, getting them is. And boy, that was so true for me. I was racking up credit card bills, putting us up in debt, causing so many issues for Kayla. But through all this, she stayed loyal, she loved me, even though I drove her nuts and I caused her so many frustrations. 2022, I decided I no longer wanted to be a maintenance man. I came to Kayla and I said, I got the perfect plan for us to get money and get our life together. I'm going to sell life insurance. Thinking back now, that was not a great plan for 3 reasons. 1, I'm not a people person. 2, life insurance is the hardest thing you can sell. And 3, I'm not that great of a talker. Boy, I set myself up for success. Kayla said that's fine, but you need to keep your job and do that on the side. I need you to keep a full-time job, so we stay safe. Yeah, I didn't listen. I quit my job and attempted to sell insurance. Over the next 3 months, this is when my relationship would be tested to its hardest point yet. During this 3-month period, Kayla would not only be making all the money, because I did not make a single sale on insurance, but I was spending hundreds of dollars on leads. She was just trying to have us survive on one income but 2 people's salary. I failed us, as simple as that. I destroyed her near perfect $750 or 750 credit score, and I got her 2019 repossessed because we could not pay the bill. All of this because of my own selfishness and not being happy with my own life. All because I was looking for a hole that was not filled. The only thing that could fill that hole I did not yet know, and that is Jesus Christ. Matthew 6:33, Jesus says, "Seek the kingdom of God above all else and live righteously, and He will give people everything they need." I was sure that this was it for me and Kayla. I'm sure our relationship was done. We made it through somehow. Worked a couple of jobs over the years through that. Still struggling financially, but surviving, if that's what you want to call it. I eventually went back to the hotel to do maintenance. Things was okay, but we were still struggling, but we were existing. The whole time in my heart, I knew I was failing Kayla, and I still feel like I do at times today. I was severely depressed. Kayla had become very distant over this time frame, but we still had love. It was still there. In this part, I never really talked about to anybody but Kayla and Randy. Every day was a fight for me. This time, no longer physical, but mental and relationship wise. My life became a fight for my life every day. Fighting the urge of suicide, dreading every decision I made through my life, just pushing on every day, trying not to want to lie to myself. I got rid of all my guns in the house, took precautions at this time because Kayla's biggest fear, bless her heart, is that she would come home and find me dead. And the topping of the cake for all this is, the one thing I was proud of, the one thing that I thought defined myself as a person, my skill, my competitive gaming career, what I was losing. I went from dominating, destroying everything in my path to looking like I had never touched a controller or a video game before. That hurt, man. To most people who don't play, it doesn't matter. They shrug it off. But to me, my skill, my competitive nature was my everything. It was who I was. When I was a kid, I didn't learn skills like construction or cars. I wasn't the smartest guy or the smoothest guy, but I was one of the best at video games. And without this, I felt a hole in my life and a hole in my heart that I didn't think I could ever replace. But the thing is, that hole didn't need to be replaced by video games. That hole didn't need to be replaced with anything. Because why? Because that hole was filled and reserved for 3 things. The hole already had a rightful owner, and that is Jesus Christ, God, and the Holy Ghost. During this time, Randy and I really started regaining our brotherhood. He got me to start coming back to encourage me to come back to church. He got me involved with the church as he seen my pain and was just tired of seeing me hurt. He was tired of seeing me go through life angry, sad, and alone, and not trusting anyone. When it came to not trusting people, that was easy for me. The hatred in my heart was so easy for me. The fear of people not liking me was so easy for me. One thing that I have suffered with my whole life, I've noticed, has gotten actually worse as I've gotten older, is the ability to connect with others and talk with them. I mentioned this at the beginning about feeling like people are not interested in what you have to say. Well, that's exactly how I feel 90% of the time. I try to go out of my way and have conversations with people, and it just seems like they've been waiting to change the subject. Reply and not listen to what you're saying, or just simply ignore the words you just spoke. I don't know about anyone else, but for someone who's already so uncomfortable in the pain inside and already thinks they don't like them, you might as well insert a knife that closes the casket. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, that absolutely sucks. And I don't wish that on anyone. Just wanting to be heard is everything. And that is something that has followed me and haunted me my whole life. I've always believed and seen the worst of people in my eyes because of my past experiences. Everyone is out to hurt me, make fun of me, or just cause me pain, and I simply did not trust anyone. So Randy got me to start coming here to Brandywine, and I'm so grateful for my brother. God had to get to Randy first and use him to be able to bring the modern-day Sons of Thunder back home. Thank you, Randy. Shortly after this time period is when I started Fight Club. And boy, I hated this place. Randy signed us up. I didn't even know what I was talking about. I didn't even know what it was. I walk in and a whole bunch of guys at midnight doing exercise. Like, what's going on? I hate exercise unless it's in the form of games. Crowd of people I didn't know, hated that too. People want to talk to me and make small talk. Well, I already have that's what I've always wanted, but it makes me uncomfortable, so I hate that also. I don't trust any of these guys. I've been alone my whole life, not able to trust anyone, so how am I going to trust any of these guys here? So I hate them too. Why would they genuinely care for me when my thought process that I would eventually learn is the place God needed me to be? This is the place God needed me to be. This is the place that would ultimately help me start growing and changing. I would never be up here talking before this. Heck, I'd barely say a word in group, let alone be a leader. I would sit there and hate everything and everyone that looked at me. But this place has helped me grow. And I hope it does the same for you guys. Better yet, as my relationship with Jesus has grown, I've grown and come out of my shell. Don't get me wrong, I still get upset. There is days I still feel I am worthless, useless, and not meant to be here. Why am I attempting? Because nobody likes me, but then I remember one thing. Jesus loves me, and that is the only thing that matters. He is the only one that decides if I am worthy. He has put favor in my life, shown me through troubling times, and He loves you too, and I promise that. So during this, I pray to God, let me have the love of my life. Let me have my family. Let me have my gaming skill back, and let me have my competitive nature back, and let me be better for you. So fast forward, this was early 2023, March, I think. I was working at the hotel still. It was like a Friday afternoon. I get off at 2:30. I think it's like 2:25 or something. It's right there at the time. I was finishing and attempting to replace a routine shower cartridge. All my other maintenance men was off. My manager was on vacation, and I was alone. I know you're thinking to yourself right now, oh, this is about to go great. I know it. Well, to your surprise, it didn't. The hot water valve was eroded and burst on me. High pressure water shot out, steaming hot gallons and gallons of water, as this is an active flowing line. I panicked. I went to the water shut-off valves. Guess what? They're eroded also. They don't work. So I happen to put cheap stuff in. I tried everything I could to get this high-pressure water valve hole to plug in. As I'm there in straight fear and panic, the first floor, second floor, third floor, all flooding because of causing major damage. I screamed at the top of my lungs as loud as I could, "Help me, Jesus!" Well, nothing happened. But finally, the water got shut off 4 hours later. And, yeah, it was a miserable time. At least that's what I thought, was nothing happened. The first time I met God at water and asked for help, I didn't think anything happened. The next day while at home is when I got the best news I could ever ask for. The best news I've ever gotten in my life. I learned I was having my only kid, my daughter, my baby girl Harper. I was so upset. I didn't understand why God gave me a daughter, not a son. You can see it on the video. I mean, when it was revealed, my face was PO'd. Because I'm a very, like I said, wear my heart in my sleeve type of guy. December 2023 though, we go to the hospital to have my daughter. Taylor's not even 3 centimeters dilated in the hospital, been there for over 24 hours. She was in a lot of pain. They gave her an epidural, which in return is supposed to help, but made things way worse. And my faith would be tested. The epidural set baby Harper off. She did not like it. She was ready to come into this world. She was trying to force her head through the cervix, and her little head got stuck, which created panic, and her heartbeat started to drop. They rushed Taylor back for an emergency C-section. I was there holding Caitlin's beautiful hand as she was shaking. Less than 30 minutes later, I was holding my beautiful daughter in my arms. Fast forward to 2024. My friend Andrew, that I've been my brother for life, and my other friend who I didn't mention earlier, Jordan, decided they no longer wanted to be my friend. They told me I care about video games too much and I'm way too serious. They no longer wanted me to be the main part of their lives, and man, that hurt because that's just who I am. That's my personality. And that's what I love, and that's what I like. It's like getting stabbed and my heart ripped out at the same time, and I just felt abandoned by these two that I've been friends with since I was 15 years old. and I'm 30. So it's 15 years of my life. I prayed about this though, and God called me and reassured me. He said, this was just part of the process, but it did make me question who I was as a person. Although I still have issues financially, and I thank God every day that my bills are paid, and I have a roof over my head, I'm drug-free, and I have a chance to break a generational curse. One day while I work with Rainey, yes, I work with Rainey again currently. Been here for a while. It's probably the happiest I've been at work in a long time. This is just the middle of a normal work day. It was a Monday. This was just actually a month or two ago. Actually, it was the day after, if any of you seen, Rainey gave this big ceremony of the baptism. My mom told him during that time period when Rainey was going through his issues, go to the water and pray. And I thought to myself, God never told me go to the water and pray. And just like that, I heard a voice in my head. It was not my voice that said, okay, then it's your turn to go to the water. I got chills, man. I stopped watching Rainey work. And with all the tears in my eyes, I told Rainey this. I told Rainey this, and Rainey said, you need to follow. I called my mom to see if she'd take Harper for that afternoon while I went to the water. Later that Monday, I went to the pond here at Rainey One. I met Rainey, Big Josh Morrow, Scott at the pond, and they helped reaffirm me. But this time it was different. When I was a kid, I got reaffirmed before. It was different because this time I was truly giving my life to Jesus. And all I know, and although I know I may stumble or slip, He would love me and my efforts would be noticed. I came out of that water so refreshed and feeling so different. The Holy Ghost was over me, and I hugged my brother like I never had. I asked God to give me the woman of my dreams, a job I could stand and tolerate, a family that wouldn't leave me, and for my gaming skill to be back and my credit and my competitive nature to be restored, and He delivered. And I know now I knew it was my turn to hold up the bargain, be a better man, better father, better loved one, better leader, better teammate, and most importantly, a better follower of Christ. Since this, I have returned to gaming. I'm actually about to play my first $100,000 tournament in the 19th. I have the admiration of the woman of my dreams, the love of my life, Kayla. I have the love of my daughter that I can never truly repay because she has taught me to be loved, to love and be tender. My brother has shown me it's okay, and everyone gets to God at a different time. And my Fight Club brothers have shown me we're not alone, and it is okay to trust one another. Amen. And Jesus, the most important, has shown me that grace is grace, and that it is okay to slip and fall, but it's about how we get up. He will guide us where we need to be. That even if we don't, He'll be there waiting, guiding us, even when we don't see Him, even if we don't want it at the time. Guys, in summary, I stand here before you humbled and feeling God's love. I went from hating everyone and seeing the absolute worst in everyone, thinking they are there to hurt me, from trusting no one to opening up because that's what God and Jesus does. I went from being alone to being surrounded and shrouded by love. God had my favor in my life even when I denied or didn't see it. He guided me, protected me, knowing I would get to Him in this time. Guys, it's okay if you're not there yet, but trust me, God is there for you. Jesus is there for you. Things may seem like they're going bad for you. Things may seem like they absolutely suck right now. But no, put your faith in Him, and He has a plan and a purpose for all of you. My name is Stormey Jones. I love you guys, and I am so happy for you guys here. If you need anything, I'm serious. Come to me. Call me at 3 a.m. I will answer, because I know what it's like to need a person in your life when you feel alone and voiceless. And like you, have absolutely no one. I love you guys, and I'm so happy you are all here for this round one. But more importantly, Jesus loves all of you. Amen.